much. Final new petition today. There are other petitions, but Petition 1247 is by Stuart McKenzie, calling on this Parliament to urge the Scottish Government to introduce a McKenzie Friend facility in Scottish courts as a matter of urgency. Margot, I think this is a petition that you've expressed interest in, so you may wish to comment on it. So petition is here. Margot, can maybe invite you in at the moment on this particular petition? Is there any? Okay, there you go.
Well, thank you, Chair. I've been interested in lay representation in the Scottish courts for a while, arising out of the failure of Scots law to enact a provision which has been running successfully in England for, I think, about 20 years now. That allows professional representation rather than legal representation in a very, very complex technical case, such as a fraud case, perhaps, or a construction case where you have to have a knowledge of the construction industry and so on. And there's a system of registration whereby companies may apply to be registered. Only 2 or 3 have in England, in fact, but the system works because there aren't all that many cases of such complexity going through the courts every year, and there would be even fewer in Scotland. However, we have failed to enact this legislation, and I haven't yet been given a satisfactory explanation as to why. Now I find that in civil courts and in matters of perhaps a small debt being or having to be rescheduled in a court, that the person whose debt is to be rescheduled can find it impossible to get legal representation. And it could be that perhaps they can't afford legal representation in a more complex action. And they have to go into court and represent themselves. Now, once again in England, for the last, I think, 39 years, a system known as McKenzie's Friends has been operational. This allows the person defending themselves to be supported, aided and backed up generally, either with expert information or simple help in, for example, my papers are all spread out here. If I start really shaking, you'll see why it would be quite handy for me to have a McKenzie's Friend here to fix the papers for me. And that's the situation that an unqualified person can find themselves in court. That's the sort of function a McKenzie's Friend might fulfil. And the petition is backed by Which magazine and by the Consumers Association. I've also looked at the European Convention of Human Rights, and it would appear to be backed by that also, some heavy-duty support for it, because the Convention of Human Rights says that the principle of equality of arms, meaning that a party must be able to put forward his arguments in conditions such that he is not put at a considerable disadvantage vis-à-vis the other side. Well, if you're unrepresented in a court, you are at a disadvantage to start off with, and the disadvantage is made considerable if you're denied the sort of practical support that I've asked for. So, in essence, Mr McKenzie's petition asks that the Scottish courts should incorporate the principle and the facility of McKenzie's Friends ASAP, and Lord Gill looks as though he actually supports the idea. So I think it's a serious runner for consideration by this committee for support.
Thanks so much, Margot. Any comments, Robin, and then Nigel?
Yes, Convener, I'd be very happy to be Margot's McKenzie Friend at any time. This seems...
Charmer, Robin, aren't you? Silver fox there, you know. Okay.
This seems such an obviously good idea and common sense idea that I think we must continue it. I think we should ask the Scottish Government directly whether it will introduce a McKenzie Friend facility in Scottish courts, and if not, why not? And will this matter be part of the 8th programme of law reform to be held by the Scottish Law Constitution Commission? We could also ask a number of other institutions as well, the Law Society, the Faculty of Advocates, the Lord President of the Court of Session, Scottish Court Service, the Citizens Advice Scotland, Money Advice Scotland and the Scottish Consumer Council, as to whether they would support the introduction of a McKenzie Friend facility. And if not, why not?
Okay. Thank you very much, Robin. Okay, I know that Nigel and then Bill.
Thank you, Convener. It's worth just noting that, of course, pardon me, the introduction of McKenzie's Friend was not something which the British government brought in. It was actually something which the courts themselves simply allowed and went to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal has said, yes, you should do it. I would point members, if they are looking for anything to help them on this, there was a wonderful review by Robin Spon-Smith I found on the internet. It's dated about 2006. It's really quite comprehensive, and it shows how the law has developed in England and Wales. And it indicates, I think, quite clearly how it could develop in Scotland. But as I say, we don't, I mean, I'm sure we want to talk to the government, and I'm sure we would want to write to the Lord President, but it is in fact open to the courts simply to do this. They do not need to be told. It's plainly open to them. And I think we probably just need to encourage them to do it. And if Lord Gill, in his review, is also going to encourage them to do it, then, again, I don't think you'll find it actually needs anything done, other than perhaps a nod from the Lord President.
Can I maybe get other things, Margot, and then you can come back to that, okay? Okay, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I mean, I know that at small claims hearings and certain sheriff court procedures, there are parties able to come in and speak on behalf of those folk who are in that situation. But McKenzie Friends, do they work, Margot? What is the evidence that they work as a support and are not simply superfluous? If I may be devil's advocate, is there any evidence?
From England, yes.
From England. Could you specify?
You were wanting to come in on as well, Margot. If you want to respond to that point, and then also the point that you were intending to come in before I gently cut you off.
Yes, it's simply the reason for doing something. It was in response to Nigel Dawn. The reason for doing something is because there's been such a time lag in implementing the other recommendation, which has been running successfully in England for lay professional or lay expert representation in court rather than legal professional representation. So there's some evidence, there's some forum there in this matter. In the Scottish courts or Scottish system, it would appear. That's why. But as to the evidence for it working, it's been going for 39 years, quite successfully in England.
Against asking the questions that Robin has asked, but I just wonder about the evidential basis, that's all.
Well, thankfully it's not up to me to find the evidential basis in written form, but if you want it, I'll make sure that Mr McKenzie knows that the committee would like to see it. But I think it's self-evident that in England there's no complaint, it's accepted and it happens.
Okay.
Nigel.
Thank you, Convener. Can I just come back in just to make the point to Bill Butler and anybody else? This is not about representation. This is not about putting somebody else's case. They put the case. McKenzie's Friend is simply the person who sits alongside, as Margot says, keeps the papers in order, nods, suggests, gives advice and help and encouragement. It is not about advocacy, which is a separate debate that we've already had very recently, actually, on this committee.
Okay, any other comments from members of the committee? Then, if there's series of suggestions, I think we can explore issues. I mean, judging from what Nigel commented on about, you know, the framework in terms of the courts themselves. So you were suggesting perhaps the Lord Chancellor and Department in England to try and maybe explore their experience of this and also their observations on it that might help some of the dialogue that Bill was understandably raising. I think that's will be helpful, the suggestions Robin's made as well. Margot, any final comments?
No, I think that the committee is aware of it. They see, I think, the common sense in it. But I also sense that the committee want to know that it's not superfluous to requirements, and I think that can be demonstrated.
Okay, can I thank Margot for presence on this particular item? Can I take a couple of minutes comfort break, quick cup of tea, and then we'll move on to the range of existing petitions? Okay, thank you for your time.